Our MC for this afternoon, Bloomberg Quick Take anchor and reporter, Scarlett Fu.
Thank you. And that was the voice of God, or so I'm told in my program. So thank you, God. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well today. How are you all doing? Welcome to Legal Momentum's Aiming High Awards Luncheon 2022. We are thrilled to be back in person once again. Believe it or not, this is now our 22nd year of honoring those who advocate for women and girls. And it's a huge privilege for me to serve as your MC once again. This afternoon, we're going to be celebrating 4 remarkable women, including the Legal Momentum Lifetime Champion Awardee. But first, I want to thank all of you, of course, for joining Legal Momentum at this luncheon and for supporting the crucial work that the organization does on behalf of women and girls all across the United States. As the first and oldest legal defense and education fund for women, Legal Momentum has come a long way, but obviously there's still a lot of work to be done, as evidenced by the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade earlier this year and the fallout that we've seen in individual states. And because of you, our friends and supporters, Legal Momentum can continue with its impactful work. I hope you're as excited as I am to meet our honorees, to hear their inspiring stories, and to hear what motivates them. These women clearly are role models for women and children, and we look forward to hearing their stories. Right now, I'd like to invite Eileen Simon to come up on stage to get our program started.
Thank you, Scarlett. It is terrific to have our event in such incredibly professional hands. So good afternoon, and welcome to Legal Momentum's annual Aiming High Awards. I am so delighted to see everyone here today in person for the first time in what seems like literally a lifetime ago, 2019, if we even remember back that far. So as Scarlett mentioned, I'm Eileen Simon, and I am honored to chair the board of Legal Momentum. Our organization has boldly changed the landscape for women's rights for more than 50 years. I'm so proud of what we've accomplished over this amazing period of turmoil, challenge, and time, even more challenging in 2022 than last year when we gathered in a hybrid setting to mark our 50th anniversary. Yet I'm equally proud of what more we have to accomplish. Women's rights remain human rights, and that's a mission that I stand behind along with the members of our board. Legal Momentum plays a pivotal role in so many areas of the fight for women's rights, and we lead in many. Lead, litigate, educate, advocate, and defend. That's a really broad scope, and so we need to be targeted in how we execute in order to achieve maximum impact. In the litigation space, throughout its history, Legal Momentum has been involved in lawsuits that help define and defend women's rights. Our incredible legal team, who's here today, pursues cases that will shape the future, cases where there will be broad impact. Legal Momentum seeks justice for individual clients and ideally also tries to influence the way that laws are interpreted and applied and enforced in the future. In fact, opinions in these high-impact cases that touch on so many critical aspects of gender equality have been cited by judges in countless other decisions. This magnifies the impact of an individual case and can also set precedent. Legal Momentum is helping shape case law for the future. We also educate in countless arenas. One of our flagship programs is our peer educator program called Rights Now. It trains a cohort of young women of color to be peer educators themselves and pay it forward. Legal Momentum also launched the National Judicial Education Program, focused on heightening awareness of gender bias among judges, lawyers, and justice system professionals, because none of us is immune from the possibility of implicit bias. And we advocate constantly. In the legislative space, elected officials and peer organizations turn to us for our expertise. We've got a keen eye on how the law affects women and where it needs to change. And as many of our supporters know, in the early 1990s, Legal Momentum had the opportunity to work closely with then Senator Biden to draft the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA. This was a milestone. VAWA focuses on protecting women who experience domestic and dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. And every 5 years, that act is reauthorized. That's never been more critical than now. Our legislative advocacy efforts leverage our network of experts, the legal expertise we have, and the collective staff experience to craft and influence legislation protecting and advancing gender equality. And our work to defend and champion women's rights extends far and wide. Chairing the Legal Momentum Board gives me a unique vantage point. I sit at a table of incredibly talented and dedicated directors who share the commitment to Legal Momentum's mission. The board has a key role to play in ensuring that Legal Momentum is positioned for success with a clear strategic plan. My sincerest thanks to my fellow directors, present and past, for their vision and their dedication. At this time, I would love it if the members of the board of directors of Legal Momentum would just stand to be recognized. And finally, I would like to thank Elaine Wood, my predecessor as board chair, who currently serves as Legal Momentum's general counsel, for her tireless efforts in connection with today's event. I am fortunate to have learned so much from Elaine, and it's now my pleasure to turn the program over to her.
Thank you, Eileen. It is so exciting to see us all together here today. I see old friends, loyal supporters. I see new friends, some of which think maybe they can make an impact. And you have a room full now of people who believe we really can make an impact. And this is the critical time in which we want to lock arms and join efforts to move the needle forward in so many ways. I also see here some former honorees. Jennifer Marr is here from Merrill Lynch. I see some next generation leaders. Jessica Carey with Paul Weiss is here. Laura Rios with Holland and Knight is here. These honorees came together last year, even in the midst of COVID, to help support Legal Momentum. I also think Barbara Yastine is here somewhere. She is the former CEO and chair of Ally Bank and an independent board director. I think she is sitting with Linda Zoukakis, now the CFO of Nielsen, also an independent board member. I probably should have told you too, you did not need to sit in alphabetical order. We also have Brad Karp, our man of distinction and our champion who supported us for many years. And of course, my favorite former honorees, and that would be Eileen Simon, our chair, and Carol Moody, our CEO and president. These two strong women met on the board. They formed a strategic partnership. This is a partnership that still leads us today and gives us vision and purpose. And Carol Moody, it's my honor to introduce you. She is our action woman warrior. She is our CEO and our leader, our president, Carol Moody.
All right. Thank you. Well, I've only been allocated 2 minutes. Can you believe that? 2 minutes. But an important 2 minutes, because I get to thank you, our supporters, and there's nothing more important than that. So I'll start off with that, and I also have something I've never done. I get to present an honoree. Never been allowed to do it. Don't know why. Anyway, I want to thank our sponsors. It's coming up there. I mean, people may not know this. This is one of our biggest fundraising events for Legal Momentum. It is critical. So I can't thank you enough. Our grant underwriters, MasterCard, Fried Frank, King & Spalding, Oric, Paul Weiss, thank you. Our underwriters, Davis Polk, Goldman Sachs, Holland & Knight, Latham & Watkins, Wachtell. All right. Our benefactors, Cravath, Coca-Cola, Deloitte, Sullivan and Cromwell, Visa, yes. And our patrons, AIG, Citi, Covington and Burling, Deckard, Freshfields, Gibson Dunn. Thank you. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit on my 2 minutes, Crystal, but, I'll make it up later. I will make it up later in the audience. But what I said also is I actually get a chance to present our Lifetime Achievement Award to Susan Lindenauer. This is so special to me. Susan Lindenauer is a longtime member of the Board of Directors of Legal Momentum and serves as treasurer. And I'm not going to read her bio because it's in the book, and that would exceed the length of the luncheon. But Susan is the retired general counsel of the Legal Aid Society of New York, and she has been a strong advocate for women and has focused on improving the lives of poor New Yorkers through increasing access to justice. So I'm going to let Susan tell her story because it's actually more exciting than me telling her story. But I do want to say the personal thanks from all the countless women and girls for what Susan has done. But I have to be really personal about my thank you to Susan. All of Legal Momentum thanks her for her service. But I have to say that a lot of the board members don't know this, but Susan has quietly mentored me as CEO of Legal Momentum. And my other favorite story is I'm a numbers girl. People know, my numbers background. And I go through our financials, they know this, every single month, line by line. But once in a while, there might be a little Excel mix-up, and you know who finds it and tells me? Susan. Thank you, Susan. Continue to do that. Coming up, Susan. I think I'm supposed to hand the award over. I gotta get it. Woo. Wow, picture person. This is great.
Let me not ruin it.
I think we're facing it the wrong way. Yeah, there are the words. Okay. Uh-oh. We could always do a selfie,
My iPhone is broken too.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna put this over here, Susan. I better take my run and show because I won't know what to do next.
Okay. And your remarks? No. Okay.
Put it in my head.
Well, mine are not in my head. Mine are definitely on paper. Carol, I want to thank you for your kind introduction. One of the pleasures of serving on the Legal Momentum Board has been developing friendships with my fellow board members, with the amazing Legal Momentum staff, and most particularly with you, Carol. Serving on the Legal Momentum Board has been an important part of my professional life. It weaves together two distinct but clearly related strands in my career. The first involves my strong commitment to using my professional skills to ensure that meaningful access to the justice system is not limited to those who can afford private counsel. The second is my desire to use those same skills to strengthen the ability of women and girls to achieve full personal, legal, and economic rights. For about 4 decades, first as a member of the staff and then as general counsel of the Legal Aid Society of New York City, my professional career focused on the delivery of legal services to clients facing civil, criminal, or juvenile legal problems. Those were exhilarating,
exciting, and frustrating years as we expanded the right to counsel and the means for providing that counsel to tens of thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of poor New Yorkers. At the same time, I found a variety of ways to play a role in the expansion of women's rights. For example, in 1972, the same year that Legal Momentum was founded, I was one of the founding members of the first Bar Association committee devoted to women's rights. Amongst the many projects that I have participated in was the drafting of an amicus brief to the highest court in New York in support of recognizing pregnancy disability as a disability covered under New York's disability law. Believe it or not, it was not before that. In carrying out my responsibilities at the Legal Aid Society, I was able to incorporate the placement of students from the NYU Law School Sex Discrimination Clinic to undertake relevant projects under my supervision. There were other instances where my interest in women and girls and their rights were appropriately incorporated in my work at the Society. Today, along with my strong commitment to the work and health of Legal Momentum, I remain actively involved in organizations, commissions, and projects devoted to improving access to justice. These activities are referred to in my biography in your program, and I'm just going to mention two things that I think of particular importance. One is my service as a member of the Board of Trustees of the IOLA Fund that provides significant monies for civil legal services, and the other is service on the board of the New York Bar Foundation, which also provides funding for civil legal services. In no way does that diminish the need for funding for indigent defense or for representation of juveniles or their parents in family court proceedings. But my heart began with civil legal services, and a good portion of it remains there. My commitment to issues involving women and girls extends to my law school, Columbia, and to my college, Smith. At Columbia, when I was president of the Law School Alumni Association, I initiated an oral history project of the first women graduates of the law school. These oral histories were followed by a celebration of the 75th anniversary of the admission of the first woman to Columbia Law School. I chaired that event. At Smith, amongst other activities, I presented a lecture on why poverty is a women's issue. In preparing for that lecture, I was aided by data provided by the great staff of Legal Momentum. That was my first direct interaction with Legal Momentum. After that initial interaction, I quickly realized that I wanted to be far more involved with Legal Momentum, and so I became more involved with Legal Momentum. Legal Momentum's role is critical today. My commitment is both a commitment of time and money. Both are essential to Legal Momentum. I hope that each of you will provide the support that is so essential at this time of crisis. In closing, I want to recognize friends and colleagues who are here today. I value their friendship, guidance, and support. Most of all, though, I want to recognize and thank my husband, Art Lindenauer, who for more than 61 years has been my strongest supporter and always an ardent feminist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan, and I hope to hear that oral histories at some point. Look who's back up here with me.
I know, I'm breaking the rules again. I'm never allowed to do this.
Crystal's never going to invite me back.
No, she's not going to invite me back, you know. Go ahead.
All right, now's the part where we ask you to participate because we'd like you to make a donation by completing the donation card that's located at the center of your table. If your table is a nice long one, it's in the middle there, but most of you guys have round tables, so you should be able to find it pretty easily. You could also use your mobile phone and text the word women to 243-725.
Well, the reason
want
why,
tag team?
you know why I wanted to come up here is because we've gotten really sophisticated, my compliance background. Our project list is now color-coded, short term, medium term, long term. And unfortunately, our short-term list has become unmanageable. There are too many things on there that require too much money. And every week I meet with the lawyers, I go, we got to say no to something, but we don't like to say no. And let me just give you a quick example. Eileen talked about our peer educators. We will have trained over 50 young women over the past years to be peer educators and over 1,000 of their peers about sex discrimination. And guess what? Our new class starts in 2 weeks. 10 peer educators will start being trained. And guess what? $4,000 pays the salary of one peer educator for the whole year as their part-time work. And one of my exciting things about the last peer educators is that we went around the table and said, what was the most important thing for you? And it happened to be when we were celebrating, the anniversary of Title IX. And so I asked them, I said, before this, anybody knew what Title IX was? And one person said, I thought it was part of the tax code. But this is really more important. And the one peer educator said, what was important to me is that one day I was hearing someone talk about being sexually harassed at school. And because of the peer educator program, I knew that there's a Title IX coordinator at the school. I would not have known that. And I took that young lady. Now, it took her 2 days to find out who the person was. Another problem. We'll deal with that. But she felt a personal impact to someone who she helped save because of learning something at Legal Momentum. That's powerful to me. And the other thing I want to point out, we talk a lot about reproductive rights, but something people may not know about Legal Momentum is we've always had a broader recognition of bodily autonomy, and it includes pregnancy and things around that. We have a pregnancy map that needs to be updated, but that's on the short-term list. We'll get to it. But one of the things that we really focus on, and we've seen this, is something because of our expertise, is all the criminalization around reproductive rights and things surrounding it. And one of the biggest cases we're working on now is the non-consensual drug testing of pregnant patients. What is happening is that pregnant patients, normally, low-income women, are tested when they're in the hospital without their consent, and then the test results are sent to Child Protective Services. And it's horrible. We put out a booklet on that, and because of that, we are getting calls from all over the country about this practice. And so we're actually, as Eileen said, we take very, very few cases. We will now be doing this impact litigation on behalf of some clients. That takes a lot of money. So you'll be hearing more about that. As I joked last night, I think it's the first time in 10 years that I ever heard we're actually doing a FOIA request. How many of you guys out there remember FOIA requests? Exactly. So I'm up here because we have some short-term projects that were not supposed to be on our list, and they moved them up to short-term, and we need to fund those projects. So thank you for your support.
We're going to take a short break and serve dessert, but in the meantime, we don't have that up on the stage, but let me just remind you, you can text the word women to the numbers 243-725. Be sure to fill out your envelopes, and our staff will be around to pick it up at the end of the program. All right, let's get to the heart of the program, because I want to now welcome to the stage Mr. Brad Karp. Brad is chairman of Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton, and Garrison. He is a longtime friend of Legal Momentum. His firm has served as a grand underwriter of the Luncheon for many, many years. Brad was also, as we mentioned earlier, the recipient of the Aiming High Man of Distinction Award in 2017. So we want to welcome Brad Karp to the stage right now.
Thank you very, very much. It's my pleasure to introduce my dear friend and partner, Loretta Lynch, who's a recipient of this year's Legal Momentum Aiming High Award. I also want to congratulate my dear friends Debbie Perlman and Kathy Rumler for their very well-deserved recognitions, as well as Susan Lindenauer for her distinguished career in service of justice, and who is someone I've admired since I was a summer associate at Paul Weiss in 1983 and had the privilege at the ripe age of 23 of working for you and really looking up to you. So thank you for everything you have done. So today marks the 22nd Legal Momentum Aiming High Award event, and I'm proud to say that I've attended every one of them from the beginning. I'm also proud that my law firm has contributed now more than $1 million to Legal Momentum over the years to support its critically important mission and advocacy. And so many of my close friends and clients are among the 100 plus Aiming High Award honorees and are here today. It's been such a privilege to watch the growth of Legal Momentum and its predecessor organizations over the past several decades and to revel in the success of this luncheon. But let me turn now to my dear friend, Loretta Lynch. Very few individuals need no introduction, but Loretta is in that very select group. You all know her, and you all know her resume. Loretta's accomplishments are legendary and make the rest of us look like slackers. Harvard College with honors, Harvard Law School with honors, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, not once, but twice, nominated by President Clinton and by President Obama. Attorney General of the United States, nominated by President Obama, the first woman of color ever to hold that position. 3 presidential appointments. And it's not just that Loretta has served our country. She has served our nation with distinction, with purpose, and with courage. Throughout her distinguished career in public service, Loretta has always taken on the causes that mattered most, supporting the rule of law, safeguarding individual liberties, and protecting our democracy against any and all threats. Loretta Lynch has always been a profile in courage. I'm privileged to be law partners with Loretta. In many ways, we have come full circle. We first met during orientation at Harvard Law School in August 1981. I was anxious, Loretta was calm. I was insecure, Loretta was secure. I was immature, Loretta was mature. But as our Harvard 1L picture book shows, and I did bring our archival material, we did have one thing in common. We both had lots and lots and lots of 1980s style hair. Like so many, I looked up to Loretta throughout our 3 years in Cambridge, and I closely followed her career ever since, as she moved purposefully from private law practice to government, back to private law practice, and then returning to the highest level of government, running our Justice Department. I cannot begin to tell you how rewarding it was when Loretta told me a few years ago that she would join Paul Weiss as a partner. But I can tell you that being Loretta Lynch's law partner is an even greater honor than I imagined. She is the perfect partner. She is brilliant beyond words, strategic, committed, passionate, collegial, welcoming, thoughtful, and she continues each and every day to fight for justice, to fight for causes that truly matter, and to fight to improve our world and to improve our communities. But more than anything, Loretta is inspirational She has inspired me since I first met her more than 41 years ago, and she hasn't stopped. And you're about to see and hear for yourselves what makes Loretta Lynch so special. It is my distinct privilege and honor to present my partner, my friend, my hero, Loretta Lynch, with Legal Momentum's Aiming High Award.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all so much for that warm welcome. Thank you, Brad. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's always good to see that, in fact, we did have the same hairstyle 41 years ago. But thank you for your friendship and your support over the years, both then and now. Who would have thought that we would find our way back to each other? So it is such an honor to be here with all of you today. It's great, frankly, just to be together, I think. You know, things are opening up, but we're all still careful about going out. So the events that we choose to come to are really meaningful. They really are important. And so it means so much to me that we're all here together. And it's my hope that we'll all leave rejuvenated, not just by the events and the wonderful honorees with whom I'm so privileged to share the stage, but just by the chance to be together again. I hope that you find as much pleasure in that as I have. So I also want to thank not just Brad, but my entire Paul Weiss family, many of whom are here today, for their support and the growing friendships I've made in the firm over the years. But of course, my deepest thanks go to my partner of the past 15 years, the person who's been my support in so many of my efforts, who knows me better than I know myself and understands probably better than I do my desire to do good in this world. And that's my husband, Steve Hargrove, who's here with me today. So I want to thank you for this wonderful award. But as with everything that I have done in life, I did not get here alone. No one comes to this stage or even to this profession just on their own strength. Like I know so many here tonight, I was particularly inspired by my family. My own grandfather, who was a minister and a sharecropper in rural North Carolina in the first half of the last century. My grandfather had a third-grade education. He had 8 children, had no money, and because he didn't own any land, he was dependent, completely dependent, on the white farmers who would hire him and his sons, including my father, for their livelihood. But he always believed in reaching out to others. He believed in doing what was right, no matter the cost, no matter the risk. So when people in that small town, that rural community in North Carolina in the 1930s fell into, as my grandfather used to say, the clutches of the law, he would help them. They would turn to him for help. And sometimes that help was money, sometimes it was support, and sometimes it was to help them literally leave the state. Because if you were poor and black in rural North Carolina in the 1930s, there was no justice for you on a dark country road or even in the bright light of day. And so sometimes my grandfather would get involved at that level. And my father remembers, as a young boy, sometimes the sheriff coming to their house, the wooden house that my grandfather and his oldest son had built with their own hands, coming to the house to look for someone who was in trouble. And my grandfather was helping him out by hiding him under the floorboards of that very house. And the sheriff would ask my grandfather, he would say, "Gus," my grandfather's name was Augustus Claude Lynch. He would say, "Gus, have you seen so-and-so?" And my grandfather would say, "Well, I haven't seen him lately." But he always believed that things would get better. He did. He was a man of tremendous faith. He believed his children were the equal to anyone, and he believed that justice would and could be achieved even if it didn't happen in his lifetime. I guess you could say he stepped out on faith. I've also always been so inspired by my own father, that young boy who watched all those activities. When my father was a young minister in Greensboro, North Carolina, in the early 1960s, he opened the basement of his church to the young students from A&T University, including a young Jesse Jackson, who were leading the sit-ins at Greensboro's lunch counters, along with the NAACP. They held their planning meetings there. They planned the sit-ins that later expanded into the marches, that later became part of the overall movement. And in fact, my father was one of only 2 ministers who made their churches available for these meetings. And it wasn't because the religious community did not support the civil rights cause, but it was because they had all met and they had decided that given the inherent danger of those efforts, they would limit it to just those 2. And they asked which 2 men would step up and take on that risk and take on that challenge. And my father could do nothing else but to step up. And see, we often forget, I think sometimes, about just the uncertainty of the civil rights movement. You look back on the wonderful films that we have, and it looks like it's inevitable. We all realize how terrible things were and change comes. But in those days, no one knew if they were going to be successful or not. And really, who would have thought? If you said, we're going to take down the entire legal apartheid system of this country. Yes, well, how are you going to do it? We're going to go into a lunch counter and we're going to sit down. Nobody would have believed that. And yet the faith of my father and those students and the people who met in that church basement made it happen. And he used to take me to those meetings. I would ride on his shoulders. It was my favorite place to be as a toddler. He would take me and my older brother to those meetings, not because we were old enough to remember them. We weren't. We were very young. But he wanted us to be around that energy. He wanted us to see young people in action. He wanted us to see people who were refusing to accept the second-class citizenship that their own country tried to force upon them. That faith has always inspired me. And of course, my greatest inspiration was probably my own mother. My mother also grew up in a small town in rural North Carolina, but she knew that education was the way out of that particular life, and she pinned her hopes on college. It was completely unclear if she'd ever get to go, because as much as the prices changed, even then, even a few $100s might have been was equivalent to a fortune back then. So she worked part-time jobs, she saved her money, and she would tell me sometimes that she remembers vividly after church, the older people in her community would come up to her and they would press like a dime or a quarter in her hand because the whole community was behind her. So she knew that education was her way out, and she was also determined that her children would have different choices. So she did everything she could. And one summer, in the summer before she went to college, she even picked cotton to make money. North Carolina's a rural state. That's where the jobs were. And, despite what you see in the movies, some of these older movies, picking cotton is hard work. Cotton is soft, yes, but the bolls are sharp, and they can slice your fingers to ribbon, and the picking is done in the heat of the day, in the latest part of the summer and early fall, and you're bent over with this sack on your back trying to make this weight, and she's trying to pick enough to make this money. And it wasn't ultimately for her. And I remember when she told me this story when I was a child about all the things that she had done. And I remember that I turned up my nose, as only a 12-year-old daughter can do, and I said to her, ugh, why would you ever pick cotton? And she looked at me and said, so that you would never have to. And I never have. I never did. I never did. So all of that faith, all of that inspiration is what brings me to stand before you today. And of course, they are with me. I'm not alone. And so it gives me incredible honor to accept this award in the name of all of those who've gone before me, all of those whose faith in justice has never flagged, even when it was denied unto them. And as an example of that faith, I'm here to tell you, if the little boy who saw his father hide the neighbor under the floorboards can turn around and see his daughter become the 83rd Attorney General of the United States, we can do anything. We can conquer anything. Their faith inspires me now, and it has always pushed me to try and work to make real the promise of America, especially for those who all too often only feel the burdens of America. There's too many people like that. And so, to share that goal with all of you here, with the wonderful work done by Legal Momentum, makes this honor priceless. So thank you again so very, very much.
Thank you, Loretta, for those inspiring words and that inspiring story. I want to welcome now to the stage Alexandra Gerber and Allison Hines Pearl. Both these women work at Revlon. Alexandra is Senior Vice President and Assistant General Counsel, and Allison Hines Pearl is Chief Compliance Officer and Assistant General Counsel. Ladies.
Thank you, Legal Momentum, fellow honorees, and the phenomenal women that I see here in this room. We are delighted and thrilled to introduce our much loved and respected Debbie Pearlman, President and CEO of Revlon. Unfortunately, due to COVID, Debbie can't be here today. But I think that makes our job way more important because we get to tell you about Debbie. We get to tell you about her amazing leadership and, by example, share with you why she is so deserving of this award. So I'm Allison Hines Pearl, Chief Compliance Officer at Revlon, and I'm one of the newer members of the Revlon family. And very, very proud to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Gerber. I'm Senior Vice President, Assistant General Counsel at Revlon. I was truly fortunate to be part of the Revlon family when Debbie was elevated to CEO in 2018. I guess I'm a long-termer there. I've been there, 13 years or something like that. And I can tell you, when Debbie rose to that position, I was absolutely thrilled and delighted and continue to be thrilled and delighted to have her with us. And I mean, for nothing more than her unwavering grit and determination and absolute grace under pressure.
Debbie's unparalleled energy and steadfast belief in the people and the products behind our iconic brands is palpable. From our Chief Marketing Officer and our Global Head of R&D in New York, who are here today, to the global facilities that we have around the world, Revlon comprises almost 70% women, and that's something that we are so, so proud of.
And Debbie's passion for our business, it makes her more than our Chief Executive Officer. She really is Revlon's Chief Evaluation Officer. I mean, she tries each and every one of the products eagerly, and she gets us to try them too, and she's very engaged with it. It's really a lot of fun. She is our Chief Engagement Officer in that she really cares about the people in the office. You'll see her walking the floors, saying hello, stopping to chat with people, and she remembers things. I mean, she really engages and is truly interested in the lives of her people. More than that, she champions so many inclusive initiatives throughout the office. It's just a wonder. And finally, she's our chief enthusiasm officer because she really is Revlon's biggest fan, both for the company, the products, everything about it. She is an absolute dynamo in 5-inch stilettos, constantly.
What I think is so wonderful about this award for Debbie is that aiming high isn't just a lofty goal for her, right? But it symbolizes her deep commitment to helping talented women rise. And that is a tremendous honor, not just, I think, for her and for us, but also it typifies Revlon's rich history, supporting and empowering women, as well as Debbie's commitment outside of Revlon to helping families and children improve issues with regard to mental health when she co-founded the Child Mind Institute.
So given all of Debbie's accomplishments, you're probably wondering why there are two of us up here, but it really does take two people to bring her to life for you. So with that, we would have been delighted to give you Debbie Perlman, but she cannot be here today because she has COVID. So unfortunately, well, fortunately for us, we have Brad Karp here with us. So we'd like to bring Brad to the stage.
I think so.
Here we go.
I'm not Debbie Perlman. Debbie is extraordinarily sad and upset and disappointed that she can't be here this afternoon to accept the award, to tell her story, and most importantly, as is her way, to thank each and every one of you for everything that you've done to help Legal Momentum. As you just heard, Debbie's entire life, her entire professional life, has been consistent with the mission and the objectives of Legal Momentum. And I just want to accept this award on her behalf. And she promises she will be at next year's luncheon, and you'll love meeting her. She's a wonderful person and a great and inspiring role model. So thank you.
Brad Karp there doing double duty this afternoon. Coming to the stage next is Dana Remus. Dana is she just recently joined Covington and Burling as a partner. Prior to that, she served in the Biden administration as assistant to the president, and White House counsel.
Today, it is my honor to introduce someone who, like our other honorees, needs no introduction, Kathy Rumler. Kathy's career is almost too impressive to be true, spanning from lead prosecutor of the Enron task force to one of the youngest White House counsel, and now to one of the world's most influential in-house counsel as Goldman Sachs chief legal officer. What I want to speak to today are two of Kathy's truly unique qualities that I've had the chance to see firsthand: her judgment and her leadership. Kathy's incredible judgment is evident everywhere you look. It's why she was revered throughout the Obama White House as the go-to person for difficult problems and questions. It's why President Obama talked about her, still talks about her, as one of the savviest lawyers who he trusts the most, and why President Biden trusts her so deeply as well. It's why she was my first call after I was named White House counsel with questions of how to prepare for the role, and why she continued to be my first call as I encountered the toughest and most important issues and challenges facing the administration, from the COVID response to the withdrawal from Afghanistan, to putting the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. In fact, it is excellent judgment that's the reason that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was on the court in the first place. As White House counsel, she assisted President Obama in putting her on the district court. A second distinguishing feature is Kathy's awe-inspiring leadership, which she has brought to every workplace she's been in. It is rare to see a leader who has established so much trust and influence among her peers and decision makers, while also devoting countless hours to mentoring younger professionals and building diverse teams, who displays deep confidence and courage in her convictions while staying open-minded to divergent views, who always acts with poise and calm, with kindness and respect, even in the most stressful of situations. And of course, who has done so much to support and advance the women around her. Kathy's leadership sets a model for all of us to aspire to. It was certainly my model as I sat in her old West Wing office, working to build a stellar and diverse team, to integrate that team in decision-making processes throughout the building, to reestablish appropriate interactions with the Department of Justice, and to reinvigorate the lawyers group within the national security space. Kathy will continue to be my model as I transition to the private sector, as she's the model for so many in this room and beyond. And so, it is my great honor and privilege to present this award to one of the most effective and most influential lawyers of our time, Kathy Ruemmler.
Okay, first I just want to give a shout out to Dana Remus. I mean, this woman, I can personally attest to, she had one of the toughest jobs in the entire government, and she handled it superbly well, with no drama, no fanfare, no even exposés and the Washington Post about your shoes, which I unfortunately cannot say the same for. But I want to also give a congratulations to Covington and Burling on snagging her, so great job to you. Thanks, Dana. That was a wonderful introduction. Secondly, I would like to just associate myself with Loretta's remarks, because those were incredible and I can't really follow them. So thanks, Loretta. In all seriousness, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I've seen so many friends in the audience. It means so much to me that you all were here to support Legal Momentum. I know it's hard to break out in the middle of the day, but it's incredibly awesome to see you all here, so thank you. And in particular, I want to do a shout out to the fine ladies and one fine, very fine man at the Goldman Sachs table. When I decided to take this leap of faith and join Goldman Sachs, many people who knew me thought that was a little crazy, because I really didn't know, frankly, a whole lot about finance. And so, I've been learning these words like Latifaba, NIM, which I'm still not exactly sure what that means, ROE, ROTE, all of these different things, and these fabulous, incredible women at Goldman Sachs are the ones that really make me look even remotely competent. So I thank all of you for that. And to Legal Momentum, I'm really honored to receive this award today. It's such a great organization. I remember when Brad got the award, I was at lunch there. I think that was at the Cipriani in Midtown, as I remember. And it's a fantastic organization, such a great cause. Thank you all for supporting it, and thank you for being here.
Kathy Ruemmler with no notes. No papers. All right, let's give another round of applause as we honor today's award recipients. I kind of wish I was a lawyer so that I could ask one of these women to be my mentor. We thank each and every one of you for your generous support on behalf of all our guests and, of course, as well as on Legal Momentum's behalf as well. And a reminder, I still see a couple of those donation cards on the tables. Please fill them out. Give it to one of our staff members or leave it in the basket on your way out of Cipriani's near the exit. Donations are, of course, on demand as well. You can always text the word women and send it to, do we have that up? Not yet. 243-725. Women to 243-725. You can also go old school and make a donation by mailing that card in the accompanying envelope at your leisure. Thank you all so much for coming. We look forward to seeing you next year.